Good afternoon. You're watching Marchese Methods. I'm Tristan Marchese, and here we teach you how to keep your eyes on the prize and find your fulfillment. This topic here is a story near and dear to my heart. This is what happened when I was about 14 and then 17. This is the story of exactly how I got into the weightlifting, how I got started, and how I kept going with it. About 11 years strong now. So before I get started with this, I want to give you an idea of the trajectory of the channel. So my bread and butter is, the fitness and the weightlifting and that sort of thing. But really, that's only one component to what it means to become happy, fulfilled, confident, and that sort of thing. As a matter of fact, I find it to be that baseline upon which you build your sets of principles and ideas and confidence and that sort of thing to enable you to get to the state you need to be in order to be happy, fulfilled, and that sort of thing. But it's certainly not the only component. So what that means for the channel's trajectory is that I'm going to cover a range of topics, and not just like the stupid self-help stuff of here's how to weightlift, here's how to get money, and here's how to find success in dating. That's all part of it. But really that stuff doesn't have to be some sort of elaborate, sophisticated tactic or anything like that, or some sort of algorithm or equation. What I'm really going to get at here is deprogramming your mind from all the toxicity, the negativity, the poison that is totally insidiously infiltrating people from the internet. Because those are the things that really prevent you from actually getting somewhere. So, for example, just like with the working out, for example, people will go online and be like, I was going to work out today, but pizza. Hardy fucking har. First of all, not funny, not original, and not relatable. That shit should not be relatable to you. Because if that is relatable, then that's what you are. You're somebody who doesn't work out because pizza. Is that going to get you what you want? Is that going to get you the body you want? Is that going to make you attractive to who you want to be attractive to? Absolutely not. But why is that a trick on your mind? Because it's it enables you to feel like you're not the only one caving in to your dopamine receptors. So I'll dissect stuff like that more thoroughly and, literally even more thorough than that. But that's to give you an idea of what this channel's meant to be, to challenge these thoughts and this stupid cringe shit on the internet. Topics like how the housing stuff, how am I going to afford my house? The average house price is $400,000 for the house, and the average mortgage rate is $7,000, and when you compare it to you don't have a fucking choice. You got to live somewhere, so you got to figure it the fuck out. So, and I'll teach you all my tactics specifically, but more importantly, I want you to think twice before you hear some of this nonsense. So, I think too, the structure is I'm going to split up playlists and everything, but I think I'll start doing a weekly live stream. Sometimes I need to cook. Sometimes I need to just totally go off on the insanity that I see on the internet. But it's important to see how I dissect that and how I psychoanalyze that. So, all right. With that being said, let's get started. So the gym, the ever elusive, mysterious issue of how am I going to get in the gym? How am I going to look like that guy and that girl? You can't do it. Oh, my genes or whatever. It's this elusive issue that you need to understand. You're not going to be happy unless you get it sorted out. There's no way to say that you're happy with, being overweight or being too scrawny or not attracting who you want to attract, even though that's the last thing that should be on your mind for this. You're not going to be happy otherwise. You have to do this. You owe it to yourself. You can't If you had to pick between your body now and this guy on the screens and something, and not to glaze myself or anything, but like mine, and the let's suppose that you didn't have to do anything. If you could pick between one or the two, it's like kind of like if you could just get given $1 million, would you take it? If the answer to that is yes, I would. If barring any effort or anything like that, I would want that. Then that means that's what you actually want. You understand? If you want the physique and the body without the workout, then the physique is what you want, and you have no choice but to get it. So, where do we start with this? The information is all out there. I'll show you exactly, this page I have pulled up right here is exactly what I found when I was 14. But to make this about the personal story, from 14 to 17, I was vaguely aware of lifting. And the thing is, I only worked out 3 times a week, if that. I always told myself, oh, I'm too tired today. Oh, I need to rest. I need to rest. Rest is the part of recovery. You have to rest, and you have to sleep 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day in order to recover your muscles. That was what I did from 14 to 17. And when I was 14, I weighed 120 pounds. When I was 17, I weighed 120 pounds. So all that rest didn't really do anything now, did it? That rest as a vital part of recovery, isn't that amazing though? Because isn't that precisely the problem for just about the entire population, is that everyone's getting a little bit too much rest? You know, if your problem is you work out too much or you rest too much, which problem would you rather have? I'd take the workout problem. So, that's a little bit off there. Let me stay on track. So we have, to start with, I'm going to bring you to this page here just to have it as a visual aid here. All right, so this is Freud. You might have heard of Freud from the 1920s on or whatever, one of the founders of psychoanalysis and that sort of thing. And what he talks about here is the id, the ego, and the superego. So you can think of it as this. The superego is the angel on your shoulder, and the id is the devil on your shoulder. The superego is the bad cop telling you shut up, you owe up to what you do or whatever, and the id is the devil saying, oh, it's okay, blah, blah, blah. So here's why this is important, because this is what I pictured, and this is what got me started. I pictured it as, I want the angel to always win that. And the reason why I want the angel to always win that is because when the angel wins that, I am in control of myself, my life, my body, my decisions, and so on and so forth. If the id is controlling that, you are enslaved. You are enslaved to your impulses, urges, your dopamine receptors, your hunter-gatherer instinct to conserve energy and maximize pleasure. Oh, well, what's wrong with that? Don't you just want a pleasure? Food is one of the great pleasures of life. The problem with pleasure is that it is not the same thing as fulfillment, as joy, as happiness. Pleasure is a drug reaction. When you eat shitty food and when you sleep and you get a dopamine rush from that, you are abusing drugs. That's what that is. Now, before I continue, let's not do this thing that people do and take that and turn that into, oh, okay, I'm never going to sleep and I'm never going to eat, anything that's 2 calories and that sort of thing. That's equally bad, say. But you have to lean more so in one direction than the other. And the only way to get results is to lead into the direction of said angel on your shoulder. Moreover, as it pertains to masculinity and being alpha and that sort of thing, because that was one of my major things too, it pertains to that as such. You will not gain the respect of others if you do not respect yourself. And you do not respect yourself if you allow yourself to be enslaved by the impulses. You will not be able to take charge or be perceived as somebody who does not let anybody walk all over them, because you will ooze the energy that you are enslaved. You are controlled. You're controlled by alcohol, cigarettes, food, fast food, sleep, TV shows, games, whatever it is. You will ooze that you are being controlled. That's not alpha. That's not manly. It's also not manly to try to control every last little thing, but you necessarily have to control yourself. And that doesn't mean be all rigid and stand at attention and parade rest all the time. It just means that you answer only to yourself. And for those who are religious, you answer to yourself after you answer to God. That is how it is a masculinity issue and a alpha issue. Especially in the relationship dynamic, because it's not attractive to be easily stepped on and bossed around and all of that. If you've explored that alpha and that red pill space and all that stuff, shit tests and all that, and I'm not going to go too into that, but I will say this. This mentality of you control yourself, you answer yourself, trains you to be able to withstand, call it abuse in your relationship. Because it is abusive to boss your spouse around. Either way. It is abusive to manipulate your spouse either which way. It is abusive to treat your spouse as if they are subordinate to you. Either way. So, now to put this in more concrete scientific terms, this id, ego, and superego, that's what this is. Okay? So if you want to be alpha, manly, or that sort of thing, and if you want to become somebody who lifts weights seriously, your superego is going to have to take over. And if you're wondering what the ego is the mediator in between. The ego is the identity. It tries to mediate between the two. And there you have it right there. The superego, ego, id. So, now I want to take note here. Don't use the ego being the mediator as some sort of copy excuse of like, well, that superego is getting too demanding and that sort of thing, so I gotta side with the id. As a matter of fact, Freud specified that the ego, it tends to side with the id because it is the source of pleasantries. So, now, how do you do this? So part of this is recognizing what the id really is your instincts and impulses. And your instincts and impulses are mechanisms that evolved in your mind over thousands of years to keep you alive. So for example, when you're eating sugary foods spikes your dopamine because your brain evolved to very strongly reward sugar consumption because in nature it rarely occurs and it is a highly calorically rewarding food. And why is that a part of it? Because only 10,000 or so years ago, before there was farming and all of that, we were hunting and gathering all day, every day. What does that mean for your basic existence? That means sometimes you'd go 2, 3, however, maybe even 4 weeks. Don't quote me on that because I don't know exactly how long before you die. But 2 to 4 weeks, say, without eating. Which means that you are running out of energy. Food is the fuel, is the input of energy, and anything you do, even just to exist, the term is your homeostasis. Just to exist costs calories, costs fuel. So your brain evolved to reward you very strongly for the intake of highly calorically dense foods. And that's how you have why sugar is a drug, basically, and why it's so addictive. And that's why fatty foods are so addictive and people can't stop eating them. So what's the problem? The problem is that evolution is nowhere near as fast as industrialization. Food was industrialized, making sugar an abundant food. That abundance means you are enabled to overconsume it. Consume it faster than your brain can evolve to adjust accordingly, and consume it faster than you can put out those calories that you've consumed. So with that being said, to combat this, you have to evolve beyond your instincts. And this is the unique capability of every human being. This is what makes human beings unique and above all other animals, is that we have evolved a special mechanism, like call it a special mechanism in our brains, call it spirituality, call it the part inside you that's God. But what it is not a survival instinct. It is a happiness instinct, let's say, or a tendency towards a happiness and fulfillment. Now, some Redditors are going to, meta-ize that and say, well, actually, that was an evolution of the brain. Relationships are an evolutionary mechanism in the brain by which you pair bond so that you ensure the better survival of the children. And exercise is rewarding because it, does this, that, the other thing. Like, irrespective of what it is beyond your base level pleasantry instincts. And it is what you need to pursue to reach genuine fulfillment. So that is where the weightlifting question starts getting answered. In short, you evolve past your pleasantry instincts. So what did I do when I was that mentality, I actually developed that when I was 17. After a tumultuous junior year, I was frustrated by how I wasn't making progress, but I was honest with myself and I said, it's time to cut the shit because I've been doing this for 3 years and I'm really half-assing it 3 times a week, at most 45 minutes because actually you start losing muscle after 45 minutes. Yeah, right. Okay. Another cope. So now when I was 14, naturally you start looking up things like best chest exercises and things like that. So I actually tried following my path again on Google, and I actually couldn't find this page from Google, and it was kind of hard to navigate to it from bodybuilding.com. But I will never forget this. This is what my main landing page was for learning everything about exercises and working out. And I'm going to demonstrate to you what it's like to go through this, and I'll link it in the description. So, literally any possible muscle that you could want to work out, with the exception of your vastus medialis, which is a part of your quad. But if you're at a point where you need to do this, you're also at a point where you shouldn't even know what a vastus medialis is. You're going to get overwhelmed and you're not going to be able to make any progress, especially because boneheads on internet are always saying one thing versus another. And here's the best way to isolate this, that, the other thing. Find a bunch of exercises. So for example, let's go with chest because that I know is the most well-documented one. So here's what it does. It gives you a pretty comprehensive list of every exercise you could want to do. And they have ratings to them. People on the website, on the forums rated them. So you have dumbbell bench press, you have push-ups, you have close grip bench press, you have dumbbell flies. I'm actually surprised barbell bench press, here it is, the regular one. The regular one is down low. What the fuck? Why is everyone fiending for the dumbbell one? Cope. It's probably a cope, to be honest. So this is what I did. I picked a couple that I figured I'd like and I'd want to do and give a try. That's all it is. I picked a couple. I think I picked probably around 5 at a time. You could do 4. I would say 5. Start with 5 because 4 is probably going to turn into a cope. And you're going to slowly turn that into actually I only need 3. So start with 5. You could do top 5. You could do part of it or whatever. You could do a couple down here. You could say, I want to try something different. I want to do the cables here. Now, this is what you do if you've never set foot in a gym or you've only ever touched on the cardio machines. This is what you do, and this is all you do for at least bare minimum the next 3 months. Because you going from the amount of exercise you do now to more exercise than that necessarily produces the consequence of making progress. Whether that's losing fat, building muscle, building strength, you will necessarily make progress. And that's all you need to worry about. Because what you need to worry about more so than anything is actually showing up every day. Nobody shows up every day. That is 99% of the problem. And I don't mean every day, like 7 days a week, whatever. And I also don't mean, well, let's do every other day. I don't mean that. You say you want bigger biceps, you click here, and you look at a couple bicep exercises and you give them a try. So then what's next? Okay, well, how many exercises do I do? How many reps do I do? And what's my actual health and wellness, fitness, whatever goal? So I'll say this, most of the time for men, the goal, if you're serious about this, the goal is to get bigger and stronger. And that has to be your only goal. And the reason I say that is this, because a lot of people will say something like, I just want to lose fat. I just want to, not be fat. I just want to gain a few pounds. I just want to be a little leaner. So let's dissect that, and let's dissect how that infects your mind. Firstly, I just want anything already sets you up for failure, because I just want minimizes what it is and minimizes what it means to you. To say I just want is to say, I just want this slightly marginally better circumstance than what I want now. And to gain slight results requires slight effort. And if the slight effort you have to put in is only this much more than what you're doing, it necessarily won't become a habit. It will not become a habit, it will not become a daily thing, and it will not become something that you're deeply and strongly invested in. This is why the gym bro culture, and as cringe as it is, and I'll get to that throughout my channel, but this is why the gym bro culture is always making jokes about like, yeah, I want to become a freak fucking beast. I want to become a monster. Furthermore, the reason why that has to be your goal is also a biophysiological strategy. That strategy is because the fat loss problem at its base is calories in versus calories out. Okay, so we just mentioned that food is energy intake and anything you do is energy outtake. So how do you expedite the rate at which you expend energy? It's not cardio. Some of you might have stepped on a cardio machine and it estimates how many calories you've burnt. And you burn, say, 120 calories. That's like a banana. A banana. That's not going to make enough of a difference, especially because that's such a small margin that you might eat a banana today. You might eat an extra banana today, which throws it all to the ground. So how does wanting to get bigger and stronger combat that? Because firstly, the weightlifting in and of itself burns more calories per, let's say, hour than does cardio. That's firstly. Secondly, it breaks down your muscles. To repair those muscles back bigger and stronger than ever takes a tremendous amount of calories. Then, thereby, keeping that muscle on your body takes, so I read this somewhere, I should have pulled it up beforehand, but I read this somewhere. This definitely isn't the exact calculation, but it puts it into perspective. For every pound of muscle you put on, you burn an extra 100 calories a day just to have that muscle existing on your body. Now, I don't believe that because by that logic, I'd have to eat at least 4,000 calories a day, and I definitely don't. But let's go with that. Let's say after your first 3 months, you put on 10 pounds of muscle. That means you're burning an extra 1,000 calories a day just to exist. Do you think that's a large enough margin of error to make it very easy to keep the fat off your body? Absolutely. You have 1,000 calorie margin of error. So if you go to a Super Bowl party or something and you eat some extra wings or whatever, it's going to be hard to get to that extra margin. 1,000 calories. Let's say you put on 20 pounds. I put on 20, 30 pounds my first year. Let's say that meant an additional 3,000 calories. Do you think I would ever put on fat again? It's challenging to eat 3,000 calories a day. As a matter of fact, when you get to like the 5, 6, 7,000 calorie point, you either don't have a job or this is your job. So that's why that's important. That's why you can't fuck around with, oh, I just want to lose fat. Oh, I just want to be toned. I just want to be toned. You're not going to get toned unless you're a freak beast monster. And this goes for women too. Now, I suspect that most of my, fandom or whatever is going to be men. This is typically like a male topic. But this goes for women too. Especially because, and guys will say this, which is just straight up gay. Like, you're just gay if you say this. Oh, I don't want to get too big. There are guys who have been trying to get too big their whole lives without the use of performance-enhancing drugs, and it'll never fucking happen. Furthermore, what's a worse problem? Being too big and strong and muscly and lean, or being too fat, or being too skinny? Which problem would you rather have? So that's just a gay cope. Thirdly, there isn't even such thing as too big. What you think is too big is something that you get used to seeing. You get used to seeing it in the gym, and will a normie who's never set foot in the gym look at you weird? Maybe, but based. People are staring at you now. You're the fucking king of the castle. People look at you and are like, what the fuck? That's awesome. Now, to get back to women will say, oh, I don't want to get too big. Guys can't even get too big. So there's no such thing as too big for girls. And if you're still not convinced because you figure, well, I don't want to get too big, namely that I don't want to be too muscular or masculine. First of all, you need a tremendous amount of testosterone to do so. Second of all, so if the standard is too masculine to you, or if the benchmark is too masculine, but you're basing that off of what men's idea of too masculine is, then you're in it for the wrong reason. You're in it for a reason that I didn't say, which is to attract the opposite sex. I think all women know that it really doesn't take much effort to gain the attention and attraction of men. So, this is about answering to yourself. Now, what you think is too muscular probably still isn't too muscular. That's probably being influenced by a socialization, and there's certainly something to be said for how women tend to want to be smaller and men want to tend to want to be bigger. That's that natural psychodynamic, and that's evolutionary psychology. And I'll get into all that stuff throughout my channel. But really, too muscly is a much better problem than too scrawny, too flat of an ass, let's say, I'll put it into this perspective for women. Imagine never again thinking twice about whether or not an outfit makes you look fat. Imagine if you never had to think twice about how, your period's bloating you or whatever. Imagine having such a well-developed abdominal section that period bloating is barely even a thing, if at all. I don't know the exact physiology, so don't attack me because I try to say that you can make yourself not bloat, even though if you're attacking me on that, that's a co. But the main message is there's no such thing as too big for women. Any man who thinks there's such a thing as too big for women is gay. And it shouldn't even be about whether or not men are attracted to you. They'll be attracted to you no matter what. Okay? You know that. So, we have angel and devil on the shoulder. You gotta want to get bigger and stronger. Pick a handful of exercises and don't worry about the specifics of what angles and how to isometrically contract your radial nerve when supinating your hand and that sort of cockamamie bullshit. And I will attack people online who perpetrate that. And you want to answer to yourself and you want to say to yourself and be honest that you will not be happy without this. And you may not be pleased with it because pleasure is not the same as happiness, but get over it. Get used to it. The gym's really not that fucking bad. It's not that hard and it becomes second nature and it's not even like a bad experience. You'll make a lot of friends and so on and so forth. So get the fuck over it with that. So now the specific strategy I deployed in the beginning, because you can't just try a bunch of things out and see how it works. So the first part of the strategy is pick exercises, pick a handful that you think you'll like, and make sure it's a sufficient amount of exercises that it is challenging, that it's going to require something of you. So the next part. So with that goal in mind of muscle and strength, size and strength, I found this way back in the day, and I don't know if it was this specific article, but I figured why not keep going with bodybuilding.com, because this is an OG website. This is from, I don't even know. I know that I first came across this in, let's see, when I was 14, so 2009. So this site's been around before the internet was even as ubiquitous as it is now. So with that in mind, it's really absent stupid trends and bullshit from social media, because social media was still not that ubiquitous in 2009 era. So you can relatively trust this, or at least just use it as a baseline. Start here. So what we have is, if you're training for muscle size, choose a weight at which you reach muscle failure in the 8 to 12 rep range. So that's pretty accurate. I actually read back in the day that it was 5 to 12. And I'll get into why that's an important distinction, because that's been my training method. But 8 to 12. Now, here is, and I like this too, where they say, after your warm-up sets, which you never take to failure. So, for example, I had a friend in college, and, Louis, if you're watching this, I remember we would go to the gym, and he would, try to bench 225, and he would get to 185, and he would do like 10. And he would get seriously tired from that. And I was like, dude, of course you're not hitting 225. You're gassing yourself on 185. And the reason why that one set of 10 gasses you for 225, because there's an exponential decay in your ability to lift heavier as you've lifted and you expended energy. But that's a little bit too specific. But the main point there is that's certainly an important thing to take note of here. It's a little bit of an aside, but your warm-up sets, which you never take to failure. Now, here's a thing. You should select a load with which you can complete at least 8 reps, but not more than 12. So what this means is that it has to be a weight at which this rep range is sufficiently challenging. And as you go on, and you reach that 12 reps and you start being able to do kind of 13 or even just 12 fully and relatively quickly and easily throughout those 3 sets, but maybe you still can't do 13, it's time to bump up the weight. And it's time to bump up the weight at a time at which 8 is the most you could get. That's the ground zero of that weight. So now, that's for size. For strength, and this is key too, it does build strength in a way. You necessarily are going to develop your strength, but you're not going to target your strength as directly working in that rep range. That rep range is more strongly targeting muscle gain and size. So now what this says is, when focusing on maximizing your strength, you want to train with even heavier loads, ones you can lift for just 1 to 6. So I read that it was 1 to 8. So the reason why I'm distinguishing 5 to 12 and 1 to 8, that means that there is a golden range of 6 to 8 reps, whereby both size and strength were equally targeted. And this was an important thing to me because I wanted them both to, while that rate for both muscle and strength is going slower than the rate at which you would gain size, targeting size, that rate for each one individually might be slower than if you trained each one specifically and directly, but you are consistently overloading both. So this is why I don't believe in fucking strength training programs, because if you target strength specifically too long and too directly, you are losing out on size. You're losing out on size if you train 12 weeks straight specific to strength. And if you say, well, I don't care about size, I just want to be stronger. No, you don't. You want both. Because the size isn't just about a look. The size is part of your health just as much as strength. The size is a part of regulating your hormones, right? Testosterone is a part of that. You have to keep your testosterone high by consistently putting on muscle. So that's all it is. And I dove a little deeper at the time into fast twitch and slow twitch fibers and what that really means. But that's what that is. Okay. So I also had to research. So I'm just going to show this as an example. So you might see all these exercises. There's barbell bench, there's dumbbell bench, there's close grip bench, there's whatever. So what really is the difference between all of those exercises? They're all chest exercises. It's the same motion, right? So what exactly is the difference? So this is where I started digging in. So you have to know how to ask the right questions. If your question on the internet is something like, top 10 reasons why I should do dumbbell, why you should never do barbell and all that. That's all going to be bullshit. People coming up with their stupid copy, whatever the fuck shit to make themselves sound like they know what they're talking about. Your question has to specifically target exactly what the difference is between those two exercises. If you look on that bodybuilding.com thing and the only difference you see is barbell bench press, dumbbell bench press, then you have to look up what is the difference between barbell bench press and dumbbell bench press. So this is an example of what that is, what it's like to look that up. So think of it this way. A lot of times, so I'll just summarize this. A lot of times the dumbbell difference is that each of your chest muscles are working individual of one another, which means that you're not going to put up as much weight as you would with the bar, because with the bar, they're working together. However, it's not linear. So you can't just say, if I bench 200 on the bar, I'm benching 100-pound dumbbells on either side. That's not how that works. And there's all sorts of reasons to that, but just know that it's not linear. But the point there being is that if you are right-handed, or if you favor your right side, which happens, you will develop asymmetries. Dumbbell gives you the chance to offset that. And that's true of any exercise where you're, barbell curl versus dumbbell curl. So do you see how now you're starting to develop a system? You don't have to specifically hear in these cutesy-dootsy little $500 programs that this week you're doing barbell and next week you're doing dumbbell and not have an explanation why. Your explanation is the explanation of what the difference is between those two. The difference there being dumbbell alleviates asymmetries, but barbell maximizes your potential overload. Okay, so suppose you do come roughly in the middle. You're benching 250, say, and you're doing dumbbell as well. But with dumbbell, you can only bench hundreds, but you want to bench 250s, which would be the equivalent, say, of dumbbell pressing 125s, but you can't bench 125s. So you do it barbell so as to force that overload. And that's that system. And there's more things about, okay, so what about cables? What about at this angle? What about that angle? Incline, the going wisdom is incline specifically targets your upper chest because your chest is made up your pectoralis major and your pectoralis minor, and so on and so forth. That's where you develop the angles and stuff. And I'll add to the angles part, and this is a little bit too specific, but I want you to understand that the key point here is not so much the specific exercises and all these little tactics and that sort of thing. The key point here is that there's a system to it, and all you have to do is understand the mechanism and system. Okay, so for example, there's no such thing, for biceps, it doesn't need to go any further than any form of resisting the movement of your arm going from here to here. Now, there's this way, there's with your hand this way, there's this way, there's at this angle and all of that. But overall, anytime you want to do a bicep exercise, you are bringing your arm from down to up here. And what that opens you up to is understanding that that's all you need to know to be able to formulate any kind of workout you want. And that's all you need to know when you're doing an exercise in a way that is taking away from your biceps. So, right, so the classic thing of swinging too much on your biceps. You're alleviating that load from like the 0, the 180, let's say, to, I don't know, let's say just like here. But you understand that because this movement is pulling, and this is literally what your muscles are like ropes. This movement is pulling from your shoulder to here. So all you have to think about is you're grabbing a rope and you're closing the distance between the two endpoints of the rope. And that is how you develop a sense for when an exercise is being done correctly versus incorrectly. But even then, the exercise correctly versus incorrectly, as long as you're generally in the right vicinity, just watch videos. Just watch videos on how it's done in monkey see, monkey do. This stuff about, the form and, bias your biceps and that sort of stuff, that should not enter your vocabulary. That should not enter your vicinity, your thoughts, your mind, your internet algorithms until like a year or two in at the bare minimum. Because what you need to focus on is getting in there every day and challenging yourself beyond your limits. And having a serious goal, having a serious health goal, or having a serious goal that is muscle and size, and having a serious self-respect to say, I answer to myself and I'm going to be disappointed in myself if I don't go, and I'm not going to be happy without this. And this is the baseline for me to get happy with other things. If I'm disciplined in this, which is the most direct attack on the instinct to not be disciplined, because that instinct evolved from the hunter-gatherer evolution to conserve energy. If you can attack that and beat that at its most direct form, you can beat all forms of discipline. And before you know it, you can't even bring yourself to look at alcohol or cigarettes or drinks or whatever, because pleasantries does nothing for you anymore. But that is the algorithm here. That is the general handful of things to think about and use when getting started. So I think that's going to be it for me on this one, actually. I'll link all of these websites just in case you were reading it and you wanted to read it. Help me get the message across by subscribing. All right, go to marchesemethods.com to book a one-on-one session with me, 1-on-2, 1-on-3, where I can teach you how to keep your eyes on the prize, and we can dial in a little bit more on your specific circumstance, your specific mentality, your specific issues, and the way that the system applies to those. MarcheseMethods.com. All my socials are Marchese Methods. Thanks for tuning in. Go ahead and hit subscribe. No, it's funny. I just totally hate hearing myself do the shill lines. I totally hate it. Hey, what's going on, guys? Please like and subscribe. I'm trying so hard not to sound like that. Help me, give me some feedback. Comment if I sound like that. Comment what your thoughts are. Comment if this helped you. I know that this is the beginning stages of my channel, so I'm going to have a lot of friends and family watching. So, Do your due diligence, all right? Help me out. If you don't have a YouTube account, create one just to subscribe to me, all right? So that's that. Stay tuned for all the other topics. I'm going to, do a lot of stuff on Twitter, I'm going to keep pushing this out. So stay into it. And most importantly, keep your eyes on the prize. Thanks for tuning in.